Hello everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. Now this is a really exciting video because we're going to talk about a product that is definitely moving us in a more advanced position in regards to ascension, our purpose, what we're trying to fulfill here. And it's called the Grid Network Tool. And first of all, I'll show you what that looks like. They come in two sizes. So this is the first size. Right? So it's a pyramidal tool, very steep uh, gradient in regards to the pyramid tool. And it's actually made with a tensor ring at the bottom. And then we've got these bits that come up to a focal point here. And on top, you've got a double twisted infinite tensor ring that we place on top. Okay. Now, so this is the large one. We make them in two sizes, and you can get a smaller one like that. Again, we'll provide the same energetic, whatever you like in regards to the size. Now, how this came about was I was looking at a particular harmonizer, which was a little bit different. It was a new Giza designed harmonizer, so it was based on a pyramid back to back, which had a AccuVac coil in the middle, which all tensor field harmonizers have, and it was made with many times the wire had been twisted, not just double twisted, even more than that, and creating all these little toroids that were, just amplifying the whole energy of the device, right? And in the tensor field or tensor technology community, a harmonizer is used to change weather patterns, to transform weather patterns, to clean the air pollution, to support plant growth, and all these sorts of things. And of course, in the name, it's got the word harmonizer, right? Which is to transmute and bring everything into harmony, which first of all stands for it's having to change things into a harmonious state because everything's in a chaotic state, right? So anyway, I liked what they were trying to do with this product, and I was like, okay, should I make a product similar to that or based on that? And of course, whenever I get an idea or concept, I want to make sure it's coming from the heart, it's coming from my soul. So quite often I'll jump into my charts, right? And I'll have a conversation with my expansive aspects of myself, the very guide I use in all my client sessions. And of course, I got feedback there of, no, we're not going to go with that design. We like the idea, but we're going to provide you with a new design. And this is what then became the Grid Network Tool, right? So instead of having a pyramid here and then another pyramid backing that, it was like, why don't you provide a tensor ring at the bottom, right? And what you're going to do is you're not going to use an AccuVac coil in the middle, because when an AccuVac coil with a single wire is really a duality tool. And what I really got from my soul consciousness, like a lot of the clearing work we do in the sessions, it's all about neutrality, because neutrality means balance. And essentially, when we shift things into harmony, right, the harmonizer, that's what we're trying to create, is a state of neutrality, of balance. And that the problem itself of why that chaotic nature is in place and why the need for those products, right, to shift it into harmony, is because the human is forging duality itself. So straight away, I got very much on the chart that those harmonizer products are great, but it's not bringing an awareness to the individual that their own process, the way they are conditioned to perceive and process reality, of mind, thought, mentality, is in fact forging this chaotic nature to begin with. So I was like, okay, yeah, why not? So we got rid of all the duality concepts of what that harmonizer stood for, and it became this product. Now, So what you can do with this product before we get in the ins and outs about it and show some diagrams and illustrations that we've got here to accompany it, is that it can be used as very much in an angle if you're pointing up to a part of the sky that you want to transmute, right, and change. But you can also use, like, especially the smaller one, on changing the weather pattern or formation of elsewhere on the globe, right? You just need a map and the place that on the map. Now, interesting about weather patterns, right, in regards to like cyclones and stuff like that, right? Because you see this vortexing nature, right, the spiral nature of a cyclone. And what we're finding there, right, which is very much, that expression to be either in the eye of the storm or carried away and pulled into its chaotic nature, is essentially a wormhole, right? Because a wormhole is formed by two circles. Picture those as two polarities of duality that are either side of that eye of the storm, right? Which then in the middle becomes that depiction of that spiral that you see in regards to a cyclone or a hurricane or that sort of thing. Now, so it's essentially two polarities in place, which is what makes up duality, right? So when a human is being forged in creating, right, how they place their attention, how they're using their intention, choices they're making every day, but the mind, thought, mentality is guiding that process, they are creating chaos. They're creating duality. We call that the gamma duality, right? And this is why we explain so much of why we want people to know how to provide their natural state, or a state of being, which is the cosmic joke, right? We're called human beings, but we get taught to use mind, thought, mentality, which means we become human doings, not human beings. Because when we get in our heart, when we are led by the heart, and we use our attention, intention from the heart, we are the original harmonizer, because we shift things into balance, right? Which is those two circles, to bring them together to overlap. That then forms that vesica, which is the conception geometry, to shift things that are out of balance back into balance. Right. So, what this product is made of, right? So, as I say, you get the two varieties. I'm going to show the first illustration on here, which is that, right? That shows the smaller and the big one. Now, what you also get is what you can see under the big one. You get these 5 little tabs, which are crystal powders encapsulated in resin, but we anchor energetics into each tab. And what we've done, those 5 tabs represent the 5 elements, which are earth, air, water, fire, ether. Okay. Now, I know I'm connected to the etheric templates of each element, because your self is an infinite consciousness, right? What we could call as a soul, are a makeup of the 5 elements. Because you got to understand that weather patterns, the way the weather is forged, is based on us forging reality. We forge reality. We don't just come here. We're not somebody that is isolated from reality to come and experience reality. We forge reality. Life doesn't happen to you. Life is forged. Okay. So you can see how this product is a very self-empowering product. But we haven't come to the uniqueness now about its kind of antenna role, right? This is why we call it a grid network tool. But so these are the give you a closer view. These are the elements here, right? So what you've got, the green one, right, which is that's the earth element, which represents grounding. All right. So you realize this product's not just about changing weather. It's about your experience, your ascension, your wellness and vitality as well. Okay. Because you'll realize each element, what they represent, is a key pivot or component of you to provide wellness and vitality, but also to achieve the original purpose of being here, which is often called ascension. So you've got the earth element, which is the green one, which represents grounding. You've got the air element, which is the light blue one at the top by the fire. That represents self-awareness, right? Because when somebody is told to meditate, what do? Two main components: close your eyes and focus on the breath. Now, when you focus on the breath, what are you focusing on? Your respiratory system, but that's called your airway, right? Now, when you focus on that, right, you are now presenting your natural state, a state of being, which means your awareness drops out of the head and drops into the heart. You are now connected into your expansion as a soul consciousness, and we're going to show the ascension map to show that depiction of that, which means now you can be guided the way, your airway. And what requires you to get your natural state is not for your awareness to be drawn outside here, this is what the mind does. It externalizes your reality to make you believe that the origin of everything that's outside of you. No, the origin is you. You are the constant in your life. People will go, what about the other people? Yeah, they are the constant in their life, their reality. It's not one reality. We're all forging our reality. Okay. Water, right? You can see by the water drop on there. Water represents flow, right? When we're in our natural state, what are we? We are going with the flow. We are in the flow. And this is what the body needs to be well, because illness, right, which is when the body's not working well, is due to a congestion, obstruction, or blockage to flow, right? Whether it's blood, whether it's lymph, whether it's neurons communicating with neurons, food going in one end, go out the other, right? So we don't hold on to it. Urinary system, right? When urine sits in the bladder too long, what do we get? Urinary tract infection. So it's all runs on flow. And how we present ourselves, right, through being led, heart, feel, knowing, which is to feel our way, which is to go with the flow, we provide a state so the body reflects that. Okay. Fire means to renew, right? So to burn the bridges, the attachments, the dependencies to the things that are keeping you in a congested, obstructed state, stopping you from growing, personally growing, evolving. A lot of people will experience that as a fever. Fever is the fire element coming into play because you've provided a state for so long that has congested your vehicle that it needs to intervene and bring a huge amount of flow of energy, and that's what you experience as a fever. And then the last one, which is the spiral, that's ether, right? And ether means new beginnings. New beginning, ascension. Okay, you are made up of those. And in that order: earth, air, water, fire, ether. Right? And I'll show you that on another diagram. Let's have a look. Which one are we looking at here? You'll go that one. Right, so I've added a few other components on we're going to talk about, where we talk about the grid network aspect of this tool. But that's the ascension map. And if you've been following me for a while, you've most likely seen this map. Of course, a little bit different because we've added a few features on this. Now, this is your infinite consciousness, right? And each circle is a reality or universe that your energy signature as a soul is connected to, because what you are spliced amongst multitude of realities and universes for one reason: to expand itself, to evolve yourself as a consciousness, which is to forge and create reality that then is converted into form, which then presents an experience to you for you to learn from the experience to convert it into wisdom. So you can see all those dynamics, right? The green there, we've removed the name, but the green bubble, that's earth. And then you've got the trunk, right, which connects all the realities together, that's air, right? That's why when you bring your awareness to self, right, and you meditate, you connect into your higher self, which are all those versions of you and those other realities. And we've got water, which is the roots, which you could say is the source of your energy signature. And then the soul that feeds that all is the fire and ether elements. We call that celestial existence, right? And there was one point where we weren't here as the soul consciousness, which is depicted as the tree there, but we came into play because we're here also to balance out everything that's imbalanced, right? Duality formation that feeds the void, which is on that map, is that darkness, right? Light and dark. We're not light and dark. We are light. The only reason why we believe we're light and dark and we actually follow the dark is because as the human, we get hoodwinked into believing that the mind is us, the thoughts are us, the mentalities are us. No, they're not, right? Because through working with thousands of clients over a long period of time now, coming from different cultures, different parts of the world, different health problems, what is clear is this, is that when a human is led from mind, thought, mentality, the state environment they provide the body, it forges and creates disease, and it also forges and creates a self-sabotaging nature, which ends up in destructive creation, chaos. When we get the client back into its natural state, a state of being, when their awareness is in their heart, they're being guided through heart feel knowing, which is quantum, then all of a sudden they get clarity, they feel lighter, they feel more at peace, they feel loved, all the health problems go away, ascension starts to occur. As clear as anything, right? The original conflict of the human is that we believe what we feel and what is thought of is the same thing. It's not. That's why we're conflicted, because how many times, and everyone will understand this, how many times what we experience, we get a feeling, a gut instinct about it, but then also thoughts come in and they clash with each other. They do not align. And we're conflicted. Do we go by what I feel about this or what I think about this? You got here, right? The body's a vehicle. And originally, when it was being formed, right, you were conceived, that embryo was being formed, it was an empty shell. The first organ that was formed and that outside of the embryo that made its way in is the heart. This is why the heart is an organ that has a rhythm and a rate to it, because that's a physical embodiment of a vortex, and a vortex is the form of flow. Why? Because it's the carrier wave that presents what you are, a soul consciousness, through it. Okay? So all these elements are a makeup of the quantum, as you can see there, not the void. Okay? Right? Now, but if we're going with our conditioning as a human, right? And we've been led at a mind thought mentality, and we're creating out of mind thought mentality, right? How we apply our attention and intention, that's how we forge ourselves. Then we're creating more void. That's the opposite to the reason we came here. Okay. Now you also notice what I've added on there. You'll see the yellow hexagon, right? Because the grid network is made up of hexagons. Okay. You also see a geometry of the seed of life, right, in the trunk of the tree. Now, that is a tool we have at Truly Holistic, which is called the Ascendant. And the Ascendant is the depiction of that tree, because you see that tree on there as in a 2D form, right? It's flat. But if you saw that in a 3D nature, like the branches of a galaxy, it would look like that geometry. If you looked from the top looking down, it would be exactly that. And in the center of that is a hexagon, as you can see. Okay. Now, also part of that ascendant is the rings overlapping, which then create that Vesica Piscis in the middle, which is the space of conception, and we just talked about, right? Your ability to get here through the heart. There needs to be the space of conception to allow it through. Now, that conception space, that Vesica Piscis, what does it mean? Balance. It means neutrality. It means harmony. Okay. Now, on the outside of this reality, right, When we get our heart open, we facilitate more of ourselves, right? That tree. What that equates to is our auric and electromagnetic field expands out to infinite measure if we allow, as long as we keep our heart open. But if we get hoodwinked to go back in the head and the mind, what happens? Our field collapses in. Why? Because we're not facilitating what we are. Right? Now we want to, when we have our heart fully open, and I'm going to show you another slight different illustration of this. Then more, as you can see on that illustration, more of us expands out so we can get in contact with that grid network that surrounds the reality, right? To connect into our hexagon, right? Which can be seen as the hexagon is our blueprint. That's our blueprint, okay? Now the whole grid around is made up of many hexagons. So what does that stand for? That stands for all the other individuals that are forging their own generation 3 here. Each hexagon stands for each creator, right? So this is really what a human collective could be, but is not that now, because currently what we call humanity, right, a human collective, is a mind-forged phenomena, not a heart-forged phenomena, right? So what people talk about trying to convert 3D Earth into 5D Earth, this is what we're talking about here. We need to switch and change each individual human or creator out of a mind thought mentality process pathway to a heart feel knowing one, so they can all connect into their hexagon that is part of that matrix, which we call a hexagonal grid. And it's a network, because often I like to explain to people that see the body as a computer, right? The pituitary gland, which is often called the master gland to the endocrine system, it also influences our nervous system. See that as our router, right? The brain, the modem. Now, all that's missing is we need to connect into a network, right? Like right now, right? I'm using my computer to record this, right? Which is an interface, like the body an interface, and an iPhone an interface. But what makes them magic is they connect into Wi-Fi, into the internet, right? So a collective is that. It's an interconnected network. Shorten that, internet, right? And there's two forms of internet that we can connect into. One is a hive mind, which is what currently exists as a human collective that's mind forged, which is controlled by one singular mind that makes you believe that we all have a mind. No, we don't. Okay. Right. We don't have a mind. We just connect into one singular mind that has a connection that can control all. Right. Because what we find in session work with Truly Holistic, when somebody is mind oriented, right? They're using mind thought mentality, they connect into that network, which is a hive mind, a singular mind, is then they take on everyone else's stuff into their own nervous system, which means they get an unregulated nervous system, which is connected into expressions like, I feel like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. I feel like I've got so much pressure on my chest. I feel lethargic. This is heaviness. This is gravity. Gravity, the word gravity in Latin means heaviness. When is any experience that we have great? When everything feels heavy and hard. Everything feels good when we feel lighter. Why? Because we facilitate what we are, which is the light. And what's the word that means light? Levity. What's another word that means light? Quantum. Right? That's what we are. So the other network we can connect into is through the heart, not to the mind, the heart, which connects into what we are as a soul consciousness, not the human, the soul consciousness that facilitates the light for us to feel lighter, right? For us to exude light, right? Okay. So let's get into the tool. Now, when you have one of these tools, right? Either one that works for you, right? I love holding this because I can feel it. Amazing energy coming off this thing. Now, when you have this, and when when you have this, just like this, right, without the little tabs of the elements, right, you are enabling a connection of your heart, right, which facilitates this tree, right, what you are, to that hexagon that makes up as part of that hexagonal grid, right? Now, what is that going to enable? Okay, what that's going to enable, right? A quantum entanglement connection, which is a term used in quantum physics. Entanglement means connection. Now, in quantum entanglement connection, what quantum physics states is that they find that if they influence one particle, it doesn't matter if the other particle is kilometers or miles away, it was influenced like it was right next to each other. Now, what that showcases that it's a connection that bypasses space-time, because space means distance. And space-time, distance-time are measurements that the human created out of mind thought mentality to limit and confine you. This bypasses it. When you get into the heart and connect to your soul, it bypasses it. Right? Okay. So now you're facilitating a quantum entanglement connection of your heart to that grid, which can help and influence others' person's heart, and also connect to other individual creative forces here, connect to their heart, which is what a collective should be, not based on the mind forging it, where a whole mass of reality creators are dumbed down to the point that they don't even realize that they are forging and creating reality. So in a sense, you are forging an ascension for something that is not you, but it's hoodwinking you into believing that is you, right? And all that leads to is you not fulfilling your soul's purpose in ascend here, and you get recycled to have another lifetime, which is called an incarnation, to reincarnate. And it happens over and over and over. It's time to break the cycle. This tool is going to be very important to do that. Very important. That's why I'm really excited about it. All right. This could mean the shift from 3D to 5D. Very important. Right. So as it says, right, in the note there at the top, the quantum, which is what you are, right, extending its will, right, through an open heart to expand your field and becoming connected with your hexagonal blueprint. Right. So what happens if, let's say, we're not in the heart, when you don't have this tool as well? Okay, so let's look at that. Right, so it's the same thing, but you'll see that white circle, right, which depicts your auric field, right, your electromagnetic field, it stays collapsed. And it's not touching that hexagonal blueprint, right? So what happens is, because are you facilitating the white, which is what you are when you're up in mind thought mentality? No. What are you facilitating? That darkness around, which is the void, right? So then it has you'll experience that heaviness on you, right? Heavy nature, that gravity, because it's collapsing your field, because you're not facilitating, endeavoring what you are. You're facilitating, endeavoring something that you're conditioned to believe is you, which is the mind, and what it represents, which is the void. Okay. That means living a life that you don't fulfill your purpose hence failing, not fulfilling ascension, not creating a life that reflects your heart's desires for you to recycle and go through it all over again. Okay. Now, here's another beautiful illustration, and then we'll get into other ways you can use this product. This is why I love this illustration, because this is why we use tensor technology, by the way. You'll notice that this is all made with wire that was twisted, right, and cut to specific measurements we call a qubit. They're all made with the infinite qubit measurement, but both the smaller version and the bigger version. And you'll see on this illustration that the skeleton, the body's inside a ring, right, a tensor ring, right? Because inside the tensor ring, and I'm going to use this example, even though this is a double twisted ring. Like if I put it like that, like it does in that illustration you can see up there, right in the middle here, there's a 0 point, right? Right. That's then bringing light out this way and that way, right? Creates that toroid that you can see in that illustration as well, right? You also see I've put in there the hexagon, right, around the skeleton, right? Because you're bringing through that tree, right? That makeup of what you are. Right in the middle of that tree, it's showing as that seed of life, right? Right, which is got a hexagon right in the middle. Again, you can see it up there. And you're bringing it through a heart, right? I've got a heart there, right in the middle of the skeleton. And that's going to expand your field to then connect into that other hexagon, which is part of the grid network, right? That's what it's showcasing there. And as it says here, right, ascension is to facilitate everything you are, right? Because the quantum, even though it means light, it also means everything, where void means nothing. Okay. You'll notice a human, right, if they're heavily mind-orientated, they become very parasitic in nature, right? It's like, I need things from you. I need things from you. That they don't take self-responsibility of their own path, right? Cancer is a parasitic intelligence. Where does it come from? Not the quantum. It comes from the void. Why is it an epidemic? Why is it the number 1 or 2 killer in humans? Because a human is conditioned to use the mind, which is the representation to facilitate the void, which is where all parasitic intelligence comes from, which includes cancer. Why is heart disease the number 1 killer? Because we're not utilizing it. We're up here all the time. I hope it's all done. All the pieces are coming together, right? So ascension is to facilitate everything, right? The quantum, to facilitate everything you are through the open to being here, right? A state of being. What does it do? Opens the heart, gets our awareness in our heart, not up here in the head, in the mind. This results in expanding your energy field infinitely to connect to the hexagon template that is a makeup of your framework or blueprint, removing ourselves from the matrix, aka gamma duality, which is this reincarnated loop I was just discussing and talking about. That's a cool illustration. I'll bring this one up because that was part of that, but it was a bit hard to read. So it says here, right, all generations, right, generation means reality or universe, are a makeup of you, right? Because you're that whole tree. You've got a unique energy signature that shares and splices itself up, right? So it can amplify its ability to grow and evolve, right? But the framework or grid that the generations are within was forged by a collection of souls, right? So this is a true human collective that's based on the human being guided through heart field knowing, because that's what facilitates a soul, not the mind. People don't know what the mind is. Okay. This is why the framework grid is a makeup of many hexagons, because each hexagon depicts an infinite potential of each reality creator. We are all reality creators. A lot of people will go, do I matter? Right? Do I matter? Well, what's the word matter mean? Matter means physical reality. Why are we here? As a soul consciousness. And as a soul, right, from the quantum, we are made up of formless frequencies. We use a form which is the body interface, to come here to use what is formless and to convert it into form, which is physical creation, which is matter. So you matter. Simple as that. That's what it all means, right? So you'll see in like sci-fi programs, movies and stuff, depictions of the very grid I'm talking about, right? As access points. I'll quite often call them as jump points or access points. And literally, we are trying to connect into a jump or access point, because why it's called a jump point? It's moving you and propelling you forward. What's that? To evolve. What's that? To ascend. Right? Why do people get health problems, get old, decrepit? You're being literally recycled because you're not fulfilling your purpose. You're not growing. You're not moving. You're not evolving. You're not changing. Okay? And why is that? Because you're stuck in mentality, which is part of mind thought. Literally gets you stuck in a loop where, like a treadmill, you feel like you're moving, but you're in the same spot. No, you're not evolving. Okay. Here's another depiction in a movie. Right. So, and this comes from a Marvel movie, The Marvels, where they use quantum-based energy. It's actually got a lot of quantum stuff in this movie. We've made a product recently called the Quantum Bands, which are these Tensor Technology products that facilitate more of your quantum light, and you wear them on your wrist. And in that movie, there is a product. There is a bangle or bracelet that they wear that brings through quantum energy. And in this scene, she's literally directing quantum energy into the grid network, which are made of what? Hexagons. Okay. So go and check that out. It's a cool movie. Now let's get into how we use this thing. Let's bring up this. Right. So what do you get with it? Right. It's all made of copper. And you get the bigger size or the smaller size. Again, they facilitate the same energetics, same purpose. One's just, it depends on the convenience of how you want to use it. Right. Now, you get the 5 tabs, right? Each tab represented of a particular element, right? So you get earth, air, water, fire, ether. And I'm going to give you a few combinations of how you use those. And again, how you use them exactly like that, right? So you'd have that on a desk, and all you need to do is, for the elements you want to broadcast out using this product, you just put them in there. Now, I haven't mentioned, so of course, when it's in a pyramid like this, right, it's pointing to a focal point as an antenna. It's got that ability, but it's also got an ability to broadcast out because of this double twisted ring. So when that's on there, it also allows it to broadcast out. Okay, so that's on both of them. Now, so let's look into ways you can use this with the elements, right? So we've got a few different combinations. So what you do is, with the earth and air element tabs, you place them in here, right, or in the smaller one. And what that will do, and then you can direct this in a direction in the sky, right, whether it's on the horizon or whatever. And that is going to work on harmonizing weather patterns and weather formation with using the earth and air elements together with the grid network tool, right? So if it's in a local proximity, you can point that in the direction of the area you want to work on. If it's not in a close proximity, as I say, you can put the earth and air element in here and put that on a map or photo of the area you want that to provide that change. Now, another thing you can do is, with this, to encourage rainfall, you're going to use the water element tab, and again, place it within here. Now, to neutralize any form of toxicity or toxins, whether that's pesticides, whether that is chemtrails, you're going to use the fire and ether elements with the grid network tool. To enhance plant growth, you're going to use the air and water element tabs and place them in the tool. Right. So we've got a lot of that information that you can go and read also on the product store where you can get the product, which is at trulyholistic.net/products/. So go and check that out. There's quite a bit of information about this product, but I wanted to do this video because it's quite cool to show all the illustrations in this way. So this is an awesome product. And as I say, it's the first product that we've got that can enable a direct connection of our heart to our hexagonal blueprint that is part of that hexagonal grid network, which is this realization of what humanity could be if we were all heart-centered, right? All allowing our heart to lead our path through presenting our natural state, a state of being. Okay. So, we've got no other product like that. All the products we've got up to this point are all about, yes, getting your heart open, which is a huge part of it, getting your field expanded, which eventually is going to connect with that hexagon. But this one gives us an immediate direct connection to it, which, as I say, we haven't had a product like that. So, and it's got all these other wonderful benefits of transforming creation, whether that's weather patterns, whether that's toxicity, if you're worried about certain toxicities in our environment, enhancing the probability of rainfall, all sorts of things. Wonderful product. Make sure to go and check it out. As I say, you've got the two different formats, the smaller one and the big one, that are available to you. Wonderful product. Make sure you go and check it out. Remember also to like this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you are currently not subscribed so you can get more content like that. It really supports the channel as well. If you have any questions or comments about this product or anything I've discussed in this video, please comment below. I'll be happy to answer those. Share this video on your social media platforms for anyone you feel should know about this, because I think everyone needs to know about this, right? Is that everyone that would consider them awakened, spiritual, that's the dream, right? Is the 5D earth, is this aspect of what it means to be truly connected, which is really, for me, is a soul-to-soul connection, heart-to-heart connection that kind of bypasses what the human has become, which is sadly been a byproduct of mind orientation and embodying something we're not, that is causing so much unneeded suffering in the world, as well as all the illness that so many people experience on a day-to-day life. Until next time, catch you later.